democracy. I'd like to invite our speakers onto the stage. Honorable Governor of West Bengal, Shri Jagdeep Dhankhar. Welcome, sir. Please also extend a warm reception to Member of Parliament, Dr. Shashi Tharoor. Welcome, Mr. Tharoor. And chairing this session is senior journalist, author, and presenter, Mr. Vir Sanghvi. Welcome, Mr. Sanghvi. It's over to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good attendance for this time of morning, I have to say. Shashi and I were speculating that the hall would be empty as everyone was having breakfast, but thank you all for turning up. It's a great honor for me to do this session, partly because both the other panelists are my friends, but also because Shashi Tharoor is one of the stars of this circuit. Every time I do a session with Shashi Tharoor, the audience is like a Shah Rukh Khan audience just clapping at everything he says. We did that in Jaipur. It was quite amazing. It's also an honor to do a session with the governor, because, as many of you may probably not know, he was a very, very distinguished lawyer in another life. He's a man of rare intellect, which I don't think as a governor he can show us, but I'm hoping he will show us today. And also because it's unusual to have a governor on a panel like this. So to both my panelists, thank you very much.
Good to be here, Vir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So let me start with you, Shashi. Let's start with the obvious thing. We're talking about liberty, we're talking about the institutions of democracy, and we're talking about the idea of India. How does it all come together in your mind?
Well, I think it really goes to the heart of what India is all about, because our nationalist movement, don't forget, our struggle for freedom, divided not on issues of, say, geography, north versus south, or ideology, communist versus capitalist. It divided on one very simple principle, whether religion can be the determinant of your nationhood. Those who argued that their identity came from their religion, they went and founded Pakistan. That was the idea of Pakistan. And the rest, who accepted the principle that we were common citizens of a diverse, multi-ethnic and pluralist country and society, we decided to form India as all of that. And so it seems to me that the fundamental division there, Vir, is between an identity-based nationalism, which is Pakistan's, anchored in Islamic faith, and a nationalism in India which is not anchored in identity, but in constitution and institutions. That's what our nationalism is all about. And therefore, when we talk in terms of law, law is the underpinning, the bedrock of our nation state, of our entire nationalism, because it's the law that gives us, if you like, the capacity, the strength to interpret those constitutional processes, to empower individual Indian citizens. Remember, there was a debate even in the Constituent Assembly between whether you should empower groups, as the British had done, separate electorates for Muslims, separate electorates for Hindus, etc., or whether you should empower the individual citizen. The Constituent Assembly made that latter choice. So we're no longer about identities. Every identity has an equal chance to flourish, to attain any position in our country. And at the same time, unlike Pakistan, but at the same time, the notion of liberty is also built in, because obviously if you're giving political agency to every individual, and the legal system of the country guarantees that through the Constitution, then each individual has to have the freedom to agree, to disagree, to vote for a government, to vote against a government, to oppose it publicly, to support it publicly. All of those, every one of us in this room has an equal right to actually take that stand. So to my mind, when we speak of the idea of India and so on, and some of our friends on the other side of the fence say that you have no monopoly on the idea of India, we have our own idea of India. I'm saying, boss, I don't have any monopoly on any idea of India. The only idea of India I recognize is the one that is enshrined in our Constitution. It's what our Constitution tells us India is, the kind of system that is upheld by the law of our country and the liberty it gives each of us to pursue our own ideas of India, including the wrong-headed ones on the other side of the fence.
So what he said many things, but the key, I think, came at the beginning when he said the difference between India and Pakistan is that Pakistan was defined in terms of religion. India was defined in terms of an idea that respected religion, but said that religion should not be the determining factor. And I think he suggested, without actually saying so, with all these references to our friends on the other side, meaning not just the other side of the stage, but other side of the political divide, that perhaps his friends on the other side do not respect the idea of India based on an idea, but believe it should be based more on religion. What's your take on that?
Grateful to ABP.
A little higher, sir.
Near him, yeah.
Is okay?
No, you need to hold it like this to sort of almost caress it to get it. You need to hold it higher?
Okay. Am I audible? My greetings to all of you. And greetings are from City of Joy, Kolkata. I am grateful to ABP management for keeping these two distinguished people on my right side. I hope at the end of the day, it turns out to be so. I would put my thoughts across without responding to Mr. Tharoor, because that's not an easy task. Law, liberty, and democracy. Now, if you go to Indian Constitution, everyone is supposed to abide by the Constitution. Dr. Tharoor, as a senior parliamentarian for a third term, knows it, to owe allegiance to the Constitution. There are only two offices under the Constitution whose oath is very different: the President of India and the Governor. Under Article 60, the President, and under Article 159, the Governor. Their oath is to protect, preserve, and defend Constitution. Therefore, my task as first servant of the state of West Bengal is very daunting, very difficult. We must always remember, which is often forgotten, what Fuller said centuries ago: be ever so high, the law is above you. If we face situations where we have law of the ruler, but not rule of law, that's the greatest challenge to democracy. Another aspect is, can liberty graduate to license? The essence of democracy is the temples of democracy, theaters of democracy, where public issues need to be debated. They are being discussed on the streets. That's a big challenge. If this continues for long, and distinguished parliamentarians like Dr. Tharoor are not alive to it, the great institution will get into irrelevance. I would therefore respond in a limited way. India is on the rise. Indisputably, it's on incremental trajectory. The rise on various elements that constitute governance and development is like a plateau. Can we afford to ignore these great developments on political partisan grounds? The narrative politics, which is being treaded primarily because media is convinced of it, has to be antidoted. Friends, our country is one where iconic status is accorded on parameters that are not justifiable or rational. I would therefore urge any reference to religion should not red flagged. Why? Why should we not have belief in our religion? Where is the handicap? Look at countries of the globe, how committed they are to their religion. Yes, we must believe in the preamble of Indian Constitution. That is very enlightening and gives us great directional approach. But I can tell you, I am at the suffering end. I am at the suffering end as Governor of State of West Bengal for over 2.5 years. I expected enlightened parliamentarians, and we have one of the very distinguished one amongst us with great global exposure. Why don't they come to the aid of a suffering man? Entire media has given a narrative to the entire world. Governor West Bengal is at loggerheads with the Chief Minister. It is the other way around. I would therefore appeal to all of you. This is too serious a subject. We must focus on it, and time for us that we don't observe silence. If the silent majority observes silence for too long, it is bound to be silenced. I was interacting with Mr. Vir Sanghvi, one of the finest brains in journalism, an independent mind, and he was a little startled that the fear quotient in the state of West Bengal is so oppressive, so painful, indigestible, and the fourth pillar does not exist there. It seems to have been uprooted and taken to the bottom of Bay of Bengal.
You know, Shashi, I'll come back to you, but at some stage this question was going to come up. I was thinking like 15 minutes into the session I should ask you about your battle with Mamata Banerjee, but since you begun the session talking about it, let's go on about it. You have cast yourself as the victim here, the victim of what the government is doing to you. I will give you the other narrative, which is that you're actually not much of a governor. You're merely an agent of the center. You're a puppet of Modi and Shah. You are there to make life difficult for Mamata Banerjee. And because she's fighting for a democratic and elected right, you are doing everything to stop her. How do you respond to that?
Well, friends, it's so easy to convert a governor who is in a state where the party in center is not in power. He becomes instant suspect, a punching bag, day in and day out, with the might of the state government. Look at my case. I put, in all modesty, a question that I put to media all through. Please point out a single constitutional transgression by this governor. I suffer a chief minister whose duty under Article 167, and the word duty is used by the Constitution, to give me information. Not once, Dr. Tharoor, and information has been imparted by her. I suffer a chief minister with media being in captive support, that Governor West Bengal is having Pegasus equipment. He's spying on everyone.
And you're not. You don't have Pegasus.
Certainly, sir, not.
All right. Just checking. All right. Just checking. All right.
From that perspective, let me tell you,
Yeah.
of course, I have great expectation, as everyone else has, about Dr. Tharoor, with all constraints that surround him at the moment. But would you ever believe, sir, I have Pegasus equipment? Pegasus equipment in Rajbhavan, spying on the chief minister and everyone else?
Okay, the other allegation is that you have food delivered for yourself from The allegation is that you have food delivered for yourself from five-star hotels. The chief minister has made that allegation. That you have food delivered to Raj Bhavan for you to eat from five-star hotels.
Oh my God. On 7th March was a great day. I was a mute spectator because I was in the sound company of my wife, Dr. Jagdeep Dhankhar. She shares doctorate with Dr. Tharoor. and I'm wary of doctors. I'm really wary of them. The two ladies had interaction. She told Mamta ji, कि Mamta ji, it is good for you, both of you, to fight. I am not concerned. But why make an allegation that food is coming to Raj Bhavan every day from Taj, Bengal? Not even once it has come in 2.5 years. She said, guest ke liye aata hoga. Usne kaha, I cook for guests. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Dhankhar, in spite of being a doctor, is a good cook. Secondly, I pose a question to all of you with folded hands, and Vir Sanghvi in particular. Mr. Sogat Roy is as distinguished parliamentarian as Dr. Shashi Tharoor. He makes an allegation that Governor West Bengal has acted so irresponsibly that is sending him WhatsApp message against Mamata Banerjee every day. That was the claim he made. And it was there all over, in the country and outside also, sir.
Okay.
Not a single message ever sent to Sogat Roy ji. I speak out to the media. I don't get support.
Okay. I'm going to take this, Shashi. Could you have imagined 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that a governor would come on a platform like this and talk about his differences with the chief minister?
Well, you asked him to.
Yes, but he answered. He answered. He opened the door, yeah.
No, that's wonderful. But listen, while this has been fascinating and even entertaining, I think, in all fairness, I do need to respond to two things the governor said on the theme of our panel today on law, liberty, and democracy, because he did say, why shouldn't we be proud of our religion? And my answer is, I'm very proud of my religion. In fact, every Indian has the right to be proud of their own religion. But the state has no business being proud of any particular religion. The state has to keep a distance from every religion. Right. Indeed, I would go so far as to say the state has no place in my puja room. The state has no place in my kitchen. The state has no place in my bedroom. The state has no place in my dining table. But unfortunately, we have people in power who want to put the state in all those places, and that is something I have a serious problem with. The second issue is when he talked about what one can broadly describe as the civilizational idea of India. See, we both share, I think, a great respect for our ancient civilization. I have written about it. He has spoken about it. But I will say that this ancient civilization, when we talk about it, sometimes two sets of people in our country mean two different things. There are some people who see India as a pristine Hindu land, who identify a civilization purely with the Hindu religion and Hindu society, and then from there they see others coming in as interlopers or aggressors or attackers. Whereas others, and I will obviously plant myself in the same tradition as Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi and others, they said that India's civilization is a product of all who have contributed to it. That our civilization has been infused with people of various ethnicities, various religions, various kinds of points of view, and various philosophies. And they've all come in together to create this composite pluralistic India. And to my mind, while we're both talking civilizational nationalism, it seems to me that we are slightly at cross purposes, because it's a question of how you define that civilization. And to me, these are the important themes emerging from before you got the governor distracted by his chief minister. So these are the themes that I thought the governor was saying in his early remarks that needed a response.
He made a brief mention of it, but that was not the thrust of his themes. So never mind. So the two things he said, one of them is that he's also proud of his religion, just as you are, but he wants his religion kept out of everything. The state certainly has no business introducing religion in everything. I want to ask you a counter question, which is, do you think that politicians have used religion to win votes and create vote banks?
Well, the political aspect of it, Dr. Tharoor is more informed. And you know about
because
it.
You don't know anything about it. Come on, answer the question.
Let us stop being apologetic about our religion. We need not be apologetic about it. With his global exposure, Dr. Tharoor knows which are the great countries where religion has predominant role. He knows more than I do, much more than I do, how oath is taken in certain countries. It is easy to say, difficult to practice. Ladies and gentlemen, we are passing through most critical terrain of our history. I am the one involved in my position every day to analyze religion and history. Two things have been traded in a manner to kill our nationalism, and that surely can't be countenanced. If we go through our historical perspective and situations, our freedom movement was capsuled in a very narrow sense to few individuals. It is only now, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, that we come to know about the people who have played a great role in getting this freedom to us. Whenever I go to any part of West Bengal, in every part you'll find someone who has made a great contribution by making supreme sacrifice. It may be Khudiram Bose, less than 20 years. It may be Madam Hazra, 70 years. One faced the gallows, another bullet on the chest. I would therefore appeal to Dr. Tharoor, for whom I have enormous respect, and I'm sure fearlessly he will indicate his independent mind. Sir, courage of conviction should never be in captivity. Courage of conviction has to be reflected. Courage of conviction has to be premised on what is more suitable for our country. He knows more than I do, and we knows much more. The challenges before the nation today, unfortunately, are from within and without. No nation on the planet is suffering such kind of challenges. I'll tell you something very significant where silence has been observed. COVID, Manhattan scenes, shocking. The robust health infrastructure of the mightiest democratic power on earth collapsed. In London hospitals, we saw patients dying in corridors. We saw that.
Okay, I'm going to stop
1 second.
You've now gone on to COVID, so I'm going to stop you.
No, I'm in a different system.
Quickly.
Not on COVID, sir.
Okay, quickly.
In Europe, similar situation. Ladies and gentlemen, did you ever see courts in the US, courts in the UK, courts in the European Union functional? And did we have any respite here? This is a challenge where parliamentarians, thinkers, intelligentsia have to rise to a level so that a directional approach is imparted. Prove me wrong, sir, whether any court in the US, UK, or European Union was functional on all cylinders 24/7, directing the executive. Therefore, when we are talking of this great idea, we have to be extremely careful. Our institutions, the executive, legislature, and judiciary, have to confine to their limits.
Okay.
Incursion of one into the domain of the other will really unsettle democracy. And that is the job of people on my right side.
Okay. He said a lot. One of them is that we shouldn't be apologetic about being Hindus. I don't know how much you've had to say sorry for being a Hindu, but I'll ask you that anyhow. The second is that what works elsewhere doesn't necessarily work in India. The third is that institutions must know their limits. And the fourth is that the Congress, I think he means, has hijacked the freedom struggle, promoted only a few individuals, whereas there are, he says, in every corner of Bengal and elsewhere, great freedom fighters who have not been recognized. You can respond to any part of that.
I'm happy to respond to all if you like.
All right, okay.
Number one, on the question of apologetic.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us is particularly apologetic. I'm the author of a book called Why I'm a Hindu and another book called The Hindu Way, where I've tried to explain the faith as I understand it, as I grew up with it, as people like Swami Vivekananda taught us. And for me, therefore, one of the great things about Hinduism that I'm not apologetic about, but proud of, is the fact that we have a religion which, in Swami Vivekananda's words, teaches not just tolerance, but acceptance. That is, he says that we believe that all religions are equally true. That as the Shiva Mahimna Stotram says, as different rivers flow, some crooked, some straight, in different directions and end up in the same sea, so also all forms of worship and prayer reach the same divine. So for Swami Vivekananda says, we accept every faith. Worship as you like, it doesn't bother us. To my mind, that is a great strength of Hinduism, not something we need to be apologetic about. And I'm very proud when I face my friends of other faiths to be unburdened by the responsibility of believing that I'm embarked on a true path that they have somehow missed. So for me, I think that the strength of Hinduism that everyone has to acknowledge, as Swami Vivekananda taught us, is this idea of acceptance. And that is also a great prescription, by the way, for a democracy to function in, where you accept the other side. On I think you had 4 points. The second one, if I remember right, was this question of, well, the fourth one actually, was this question of whether the freedom struggle has been hijacked. And I will say that very honestly, the freedom struggle was the Indian National Congress. I mean, it doesn't take very much delving into textbooks to figure out that at that time, the alternative strain, the sort of Hindutva view of India, was represented in those days. There was no BJP, there was not even a Jansangh yet. There was the Hindu Mahasabha and there was the RSS. And neither of them participated in the freedom struggle. Both in different ways actually recommended to people to collaborate with the British. And when the Quit India movement was declared by Mahatma Gandhi and the Congress workers went into all their jails around the country, the Hindu Mahasabha even joined the Muslim League in usurping positions they had not been elected to by becoming ministers in places like Governor Sahab's Bengal in order to dispense power and patronage. So it's very difficult, it seems to me, retrospectively, for people who are political heirs to that strain of thought to suddenly become nationalists, as they claim to be, because I'm sorry to say that they were not. Now, there may be people who, having been nationalists in the Congress, moved on to other political persuasions, and that's a different story. But yes, history is written by those who, if you like, have triumphed in a particular space, and the idea of India that triumphed, the idea of this pluralist India, is the one that dominated our narratives for a long time. Now we're getting another one, and people are free and should be free in our democracy to judge for themselves what is right or what works for them and not. Then your point about the fact that what works in foreign countries doesn't necessarily work here. I actually agree with him in the sense that when we say secularism, we certainly don't mean what the French mean by secularism or even what the Americans mean by secularism. In fact, if you open a dictionary in the English language, secularism involves the absence of religion, distancing from religion, whereas in India, secularism has consistently been interpreted in the opposite sense, to mean that all religions are encouraged and are allowed to flourish profusely. So we have a situation very different from foreign countries, which is why I have always tended to use words like pluralism and diversity rather than secularism. I'm sometimes forced to say secularism because everyone understands that. But in fact, when you look at the actual meaning of the concept, what we're celebrating is the fact that you are free to be Hindu, he is free to be Sikh, she is free to be Muslim, whatever, in the way that they consider best for themselves, and that whatever they are, whatever they do is not the business of the state. It will neither be an advantage nor a handicap if they want to become Prime Minister or Chief of the Armed Services or Captain of the Indian cricket team. And that, to me, is a great thing about our society. I love it. In fact, I've written about the fact, Vir, that in 1971, when the Pakistanis had the temerity to declare a jihad against the Hindu unbeliever, our army was headed by a Parsi, General Manekshaw. Our Air Force chief in the northern sector, the one facing Pakistan, was Air Chief Marshal, later Air Chief Marshal, then Air Marshal Latif, was a Muslim. The GOC-NC Eastern Command in Fort William in Calcutta was General Jagdeep Singh Arora, a Sikh. And the general we helicoptered into Dhaka to negotiate the surrender of the Pakistani forces was Jewish, Major General Jacob. That was the Hindu infidel army that the Pakistanis wanted to have jihad against. So please understand that when I celebrate India, I celebrate all of this. And therefore, I must say that I respectfully disagree with my friend the governor, because starting with the same premises, we can legitimately approach these issues very differently from each other.
Okay, let me move away from this, and let me, given that Shashi Tharoor has shown no inclination to defend Mamata Banerjee, I suppose I'll have to do it.
And I actually...
Very unusual for him.
All right, but I'll have to do it. So, listening to what you said about being proud of being Hindus and not apologizing, and the freedom struggle having been hijacked by a few individuals, if I was Mamata Banerjee, I would say, you see my problem. This guy is not a governor, he's just a Sanghi. This guy is not a governor, he's just a Sanghi. He's come here to spread all this Sanghi rubbish, is what she would say. How do you respond?
First, if Dr. Tharoor was to be a lawyer, he will be a formidable opponent in any court of law. And if the matter was to be decided by raising of hands, the applause is indicative of it.
That's actually not true. You've got a lot of applause.
I refuse to be drawn into the favorite terrain of Dr. Shashi Tharoor and to be ambushed as per his expectation. That surely is not likely. Let me tell you, and that is why I compliment ABP, idea of India. And this idea of India was really capsuled in essence and sublimity by Kavi Guru Tagore.
Okay.
And what he said, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. For over 2.5 years, I have seen in 9 crore people mind full of fear and head in shame. Therefore, we must act in a situation where rather than engaging into confrontational stance, let us believe in dialogue, discussion, deliberation, and what is more painful, and which in a sense, without actually charging him, but that is the charge I hold against the parliamentarian. Why are you abdicating your constitutional responsibility? The issues that are required to be debated, thrashed out in the temples of democracy, parliament, are being debated on streets. You are witnessing, Dr. Tharoor, a scenario where your role as parliamentarian, which is significant but more visible outside than in parliament. And therefore, there will have to be introspective soul searching at everyone who believes in idea of India, of the kind which we have to take historical lineage to act. Intellectual competence is a great virtue, but intellectual perversion poses greatest threat to democratic polity, and I see it day in and day out. I am seeing, Vir Sanghvi, a different kind of politics.
Okay.
Several important people who are not active politicians, suddenly during election season, wherever they be in any part of the globe, would try to play politics by different means. We have to be extremely alive that our very rich demographic component is certainly not frustrated by us in exploitation of their potential. And therefore, Let us change our prism. Let us not look things from partisan stand. Let us not be, before you are accountable to any high command, wherever it is for anyone, we are accountable to the Indian Constitution. I have indicated, and I'm sharing it with you all, I take command only from Indian Constitution, and whenever a situation will arise that someone can take decision on my behalf, you will find someone else in Rajbhavan.
Okay.
Sir, let me say we are perfectly prepared to not abdicate any constitutional responsibility, but to debate every issue. The problem in Parliament is the government sets the agenda. We want to discuss China. We want to discuss Ukraine. We want to discuss price rise. We want to discuss the hijab controversy.
But we will not discuss there. We will discuss it outside.
But because the government doesn't allow discussion on these matters, if they do, we will discuss it.
Shashi Tharoor ji, I was a junior parliamentary affairs minister 32 years ago. And we were a government of 23 parties.
Yes.
And those who throw brickbats at me that I am aligned to Sangh ideology, I am not a member of RSS. But I have enormous respect for it. It's a great think tank. It's a talent. I was not fortunate to be part of it. But while running those 23 governments, 23 party coalition, there was debate. There was discussion. Sir, there can be no alibi or no apology for not performing on the floor of the House. To perform outside the House is just like arguing a case in the corridor. And those who argue cases in corridor never get orders. I would therefore appeal to his intellect. And mind you, I was elected to Parliament once. Third term for him in a constituency which is not easy. And third term for a man like him, whose personality is multifaceted, is a great achievement. Sir, perform. Perform in Parliament. Do not carry baggage. Shake off the baggage. Read Indian preamble. And don't give more meaning to it. Secularism, Hindutva should not be dominating us even in our dreams.
Okay.
We must ever be proud of it. And as a Hindu, believing in two terms have been coined. I don't want to get into that political controversy, whether it is Hindutva or Hinduwadi or Hindu.
It's a bit late not to get into political controversies, but still, go ahead. Yeah. Go on, answer. Would you respond?
No, I didn't respond to you here when you said that I'm showing no inclination to defend Mamata Banerjee.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to defend Mamata Banerjee. I think she's a terrific, impressive individual, and we all believe in opposition unity, or at least I do, and therefore I would
I'm not sure she does with your party.
That's a different question.
No,
However,
let me tell you.
she is perfectly capable of defending herself.
No.
And that's why
Right.
I didn't want to take on a task that
Fair
is
enough.
already being well performed.
No, Dr.
Sir,
Tharoor, Mamta ji in every sense is my younger sister. 31 years ago.
It's a very dysfunctional family in that case.
Sir, 31 years ago, when she suffered head injury, I rushed to Kolkata.
I remember that.
I came. But sometimes, even sister has to be shown the mirror, because relationship has to flourish, blossom. It can't be allowed to be capsized. I appreciate your constraint. I am all for Mamta, but I want Mamata Banerjee to reflect Mamta. My problem is, Mamta ji is not reflecting Mamta. And that is what we have seen. Are you aware, Dr. Tharoor? And did you ever comment? All over the globe, can you ever find a single instance of such post-poll violence? Can you imagine people being made to pay price with their lives for voting in the largest democracy? For 3 days, this governor was working 18 hours, going all over. After Kashmir, I had to see the sad spectacle of people fleeing the state going to Ranpagli in Assam to save their lives. Sir, did you react? Did you react, sir?
Sir, my party did. My party made it a very strong issue, in fact, in Parliament also.
1 second, sir. Did you react that the governor's address was blacked out in the assembly on all three occasions? Did you react, sir, that governor who is in protocol at number 1 was made to speak at number 6? Did you react, sir? Your ignorance about the state of West Bengal matches that of the media.
Okay, I'm going to not ask Shashi Tharoor to respond to every last thing about West Bengal, but this is the third reference you made to the media and how the media does not speak
sir,
up.
With apology.
No, I'm not in West Bengal, so you don't apologize to me. But these guys are. You're at an ABP News function. It's a Calcutta-based paper. So what is your problem with the media? What do you think the media is not doing?
Yes. Friends with heavy heart, with a deep sense of apology. And I know I will not be forgiven because Vir Sanghvi is a journalist all through. Media in West Bengal doesn't exist. It is not there. And I have said so in every press conference. They dare not ask a single question to the Honorable Chief Minister. I have seen the plight of media men. They are in full captivity. Even the editors do not pick up courage to visit Raj Bhavan, even on invitation. And what I have seen little more seriously is that this captive media has become like bureaucracy in the state of West Bengal, which is 100% ingratiated with the ruling dispensation, a part of the government. In several countries, particularly in Africa, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, with his global exposure, would know, have got freedom, sir, because of media.
Yeah.
But in the state of West Bengal, media is facilitating draining of democracy in the state of West Bengal. The governance in the state of West Bengal cannot be more far distant from constitutional norms and rule of law. I would appeal to media in particular with folded hands. I will crawl also before media. Just please indicate the ground reality. And the ground reality is so horrifying that you will charge me that Governor Dhankhar, all you said was understatement. Can you imagine the kind of inputs I get? Sir, State Finance Commission, a constitutional body, the only job is to give a report to the governor and at the center to the president, so that there can be devolution of funds between the local bodies and state, or state and center as maybe for the president. They don't give any report.
Really?
Can you ever imagine it? When I write to them that the only constitutional duty you have to do is to give a report to me so that I can have it placed before the legislature. They have audacity to write injustice has not been done. What does that mean? And shocking, the same people sought to be reappointed. Can I agree to it? Sir, let me share my pain with you. The government of the day, headed by illustrious Mamata Banerjee, wanted me to prorogue the house. Should I not have done it, sir? I did it. Chief Minister Tamil Nadu came out with a tweet. High office has been compromised.
Your statement did not say at the request of the Chief Minister.
Yeah, I was about to point that out. You're telling us this now. We didn't know that then.
So, and high office has been compromised, not expected of a governor like this. I immediately telephoned the Chief Minister that I wish to have a word with him. The senior most parliamentarian of that party called me. Mistake ho gayi. It won't, sir. Number one. Number two, sir, he knows it. You know it more than anyone else. I can't summon assembly at the behest of a home secretary or a chief secretary or a chief minister. I can summon it only if there's a cabinet decision. And they want it at 2 a.m. Someone told me on Twitter that they hate PM so much, they wanted to have it on at 2 a.m. I said, I have no difficulty. Unless you wish to create a history, there are historical moments. Honorable Pranab Mukherjee was the president of the country, and we had GST rolled out at midnight. So, sir, have an open mind. As Bismarck said, let the winds of change blow. And, sir, think about plight of this individual whose only commitment is to the Constitution. Don't alleviate his suffering. Just share it. You are a prolific writer. Pick up on any one facet and you will know.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm totally in favor of institutions functioning the way that they should, and that includes the media. You may say that they're not asking the tough questions in Bengal. Many of us feel that no one is asking tough questions in Delhi. I mean, there are different points of view about this. The media is often blamed because...
Let him finish, sir. You had many minutes. I'll come back to you. Here, go on.
So my argument, Governor Sahib, is let us basically strengthen institutions. Whether it's the independent bodies from the Reserve Bank to the Election Commission, whether it's the free media, which is not behaving as if it's free, it seems in many ways to be compromised, as you are alleging in Bengal and many of us are alleging nationally. It seems to me that what we could really do is actually broaden the space for dissent and conversation, because in a democracy, argument and deliberation is the best way to come to a conclusion, but that requires freedom and liberty to express your views. If everyone is feeling intimidated in the media or outside, then you're not going to have a thriving democracy.
So I face this situation every day. कहते हैं कि सब जगह ऐसा होता है, तो गवर्नर साहब आप ममता जी के पीछे क्यों पड़े हुए हो? ऐसा कहीं और नहीं होता है. झूठ के पांव और कहीं इतने नहीं हैं. बंगाल में झूठ के पंख लगते हैं. When there was an incident at Hathras, you are aware of it, sir?
I remember that.
I got to the job, sat on my desk, got report from each district magistrate, certified by 5 divisional commissioners, statistically compiled by the senior-most bureaucrat of the state, who happens to be my secretary, and I put it on Twitter. Number of rapes, number of molestations, number of female killings in the state of West Bengal. And I made a request also, before dousing fire elsewhere, it is safe and required also to douse fire under your own feet. Sir, official handle of the Home Ministry of State of West Bengal says Raj Bhavan is lying, it is fabricated, it is mischievous, and 3 more adjectives. I called the gentleman who is now the Chief Secretary. He apologized. I said, what the hell is happening? Don't you fear the prosecution you face by saying so? Sir, you are on my right side. Live up to the normal expectation of people who are on the right side. Become savior of democracy. Become savior of human rights. If Human Rights Chairman Commission tells me, a retired Chief Justice, Governor, my Human Rights Commission has been in ICU on ventilator right from day one. Where do I go, sir?
Okay, all right. We're running out of time, so actually we're out of time. We're many minutes over time. Shashi, I'm going to give you the last word. In a sense, though it may not necessarily be apparent, you're both saying the same thing. You're both saying the institutions of democracy appear to be in trouble in India, that the understanding that is necessary between politicians and institutional holders is breaking down, and that the shared values that were supposed to bind this country together are not necessarily in good shape. Is that fair?
Absolutely, Vir. That's an excellent summary. In fact, if I were to make a closing remark, it would be that, because I mean, the burden of my song from the start was that we've created a certain kind of India in the Constitution, which enshrines certain institutions, processes, and features that guarantee our democracy and guarantee each one of us as a citizen of India the individual agency, the individual power to determine our political destiny in this country. But while that really worked and was built up in that manner for the most of the first 7 decades, I would argue that in recent years, we are seeing some distortions. Governor Dhankhar has given you the example of his experience as a governor with a particular state. I have been focusing on our experience as opposition parliamentarians with the central government. There are serious questions about institutional autonomy. There are serious questions about the nature of identity, as I mentioned earlier. No problem in being proud of being a Hindu, being proud of being a Sikh, being proud of being a Muslim, but you can be proud in all those things because each of those identities is only secure under the shelter of the Indian identity that the Indian Constitution gives us all. And to my mind, the institutions we're talking about are part of that constitutional idea, that the strength of our democracy lies not only in who gets elected now and maybe, diselected 5 years from now. The fact is that when you are facing an opportunity to get elected, you do not have the right to override the Constitution and the institutions. Dr. Ambedkar pointed out, whether you're a political majority or a communal majority, the Constitution is written to protect those who are not in the majority. And it is written to ensure that everybody's rights are upheld. That, to my mind, is one of the great strengths of our country, and we should not let it be undermined or eroded by the fallibilities of the individuals who are working under the institutions of that Constitution and perhaps not upholding the quality and the spirit that they were meant to have.
Before we end, because we're now, I see Mohit staring at me, we're now several minutes over time. Can I just say, and not just because both these gentlemen are friends of mine and people I respect very much, that they're obviously people with very different points of view. And yet, this discussion has been conducted with the utmost civility, with the highest standard of argument. It's something that's very rare in Indian politics these days, as anybody who watches television, which I'm sure most of you do. So thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Not part of politics.
You're what?
Not part of politics.
Though the governor is, of course, a constitutional figure and is not part of politics, he is still somebody who interacts with politicians, so I need to make that.
I'll tell you why I say so.
Okay.
Whenever Honorable Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee comes to me, she says, "Aapki party wahan theek kar rahi hai, wahan theek nahi kar rahi." Ma'am, I am not a member of any political party, and if my career has to be seen, I have traversed several political parties, including that of Dr. Shashi Tharoor.
Well, that says it all, doesn't it? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, guys, for being a great audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanghvi. What an engaging, entertaining, informative conversation that was. And I think that's the very idea behind this unique platform where we showcase the very different ideas of India. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite on stage Shashi Sinha, Chairman BARC and CEO IPG, also Rajiv Khandekar, Senior